Merhaba, hello. Merhaba hepinize, hoş geldiniz. Hello and welcome. Today is the first day of ANIMIST, and we are proud to have our first guest. And indeed, she was our guest last year, but we couldn't manage to host her here, unfortunately. Dear Helen PIERCY is with us, all the way from Italy. Well, thank you so much, Helen, for being with us today and supporting animation and women in animation. I'm Nazlı Eda Noyan, director of ANIMIST Festival and an academician and an artist. And right next to me is my student, dear Doğa, and she will be co-hosting with me today all the sessions as the next generation of animation. And I'm sure she will have lots to ask you, Helen. Mm-hmm. And before giving you the host and giving you the stage, we would like to introduce you briefly to our audience, to our guests. And Doğa, maybe you can do the introduction.
Yes, of course. Hello, welcome. Okay, Helen PIERCY is a multidisciplinary filmmaker, award-winning children's book author, and a professional educator. After graduating from National Film and Television School in 2009, nice, with a master's degree in animation direction, she started her career as a London-based freelance animator, then started her own business as a filmmaker. Helen currently teaches full-time undergraduate animation in Norwich University of Arts and is a consultant of Animated Women UK.
Brilliant. Wow. And she's a mother, and above all of this. Well, thank you again, Helen. And we have to thank also Animated Women UK and British Council in Turkey because they were also, the initiators of this meeting in a way. So thank you again. And I'm going to give you the hosting now. Finally. And Helen, there may be some people joining and asking for admission. Maybe you can kindly admit them to the meeting.
I will admit them into the meeting, no problem. Okay, fantastic. Well, I will now share my screen. If you could give me the permissions. Yeah, thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. There we go, lovely. All right, so let me just pop up my presentation. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, brilliant, lovely. So yes, thank you. Hello, thank you to ANIMIST Festival for inviting me to talk about my career and on the topic of women power in animation, which is a topic that is actually very close to my heart. And yeah, I'm very pleased to give this presentation and absolutely welcome any questions about any of the topics that I mention in the discussion. So please do come up with questions. I think we're going to answer them at the end, but yeah, very happy to answer any questions. So I thought I would introduce myself first and just give an overview of my roles as well. So yeah, who am I? So you've already had an overview of who I am. So just to kind of repeat that a little bit, I'm a filmmaker and I'm also a creative educator. And I also am a craftsperson, so I actually make things in my spare time. So I do knitting, I do crochet, I do drawing, because I think it's very important to kind of keep your other creative pursuits alive, as well as kind of doing all the other things. I'm a lecturer at Norwich University of the Arts, and I lecture on the BA Animation and Visual Effects course. And yes, I'm also the education advisor for an organisation called Animated Women UK. So yeah, within this presentation, I'm going to just give a very brief overview of my career journey, just sort of say kind of how I got to this point in my life. Then I'm going to talk about Animated Women UK, which is the organisation that I work for or volunteer for, and yeah, just sort of talk about kind of the projects that we do as well with them. Then the sort of a wing from that I sort of take most role. I'm just admitting people's up by the way I'm talking, so doing that as well. Yeah, so animated women education is kind of the role that I sort of take on as part of Animated Women UK. Then I'm going to talk about the power of mentorship and how mentorships work and what you can get from them and why they're really important, especially for young people going into the industry. And then I'm just going to discuss about my current and also my future projects, so things I've got in the pipeline coming up. Right. Yeah, so my career journey. So where did I start on this crazy journey of mine? Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was always very creative. It was something that I just really enjoyed doing. I was always drawing and painting, and I absolutely loved comics. So this particular comic here, the Beano, was very popular. It still is popular now, but back when I was young, this was a comic that I really enjoyed reading. I really enjoyed the stories, and I used to kind of draw my own comics as well. I also really enjoyed watching cartoons. So I used to get up really early before my parents woke up, and I'd go and watch hours of cartoons. So one I really enjoyed was called The Magic Roundabout, which was a stop motion puppet, which I think they've kind of redone it with CGI now, but it was originally with stop motion puppets, and also the really early Wallace and Gromit films. So yeah, I really like the kind of tactility of the actual kind of models. But I also used to watch lots of 80s cartoons as well, so 2D animation and then CG. I just loved animation. I would just absorb it all the time. I also really loved films that had puppets in them as well. So Jim Henson is a big influence of mine. So I don't know if you guys have seen his films, but Labyrinth is a big one, and also The Dark Crystal as well. But I absolutely love these sort of fantastical imaginary worlds with these amazing characters, and so these were kind of my big influences growing up. Yes, so I told my parents I wanted to do animation, and they luckily supported that idea, even though sort of this is back in the kind of 90s. There wasn't much of there was an animation industry, but it was fairly small back in the UK. So I didn't really know how to go about getting to do a degree in animation. So I looked around, and there were a few universities that offered animation, but as part of another course. So there was a sort of module that you did. And I found a really good course actually in Norwich, where I now teach, that did sort of graphic design, but also with an animation strand as well. So I did that and had a really fantastic tutor, a woman called Susie Hannah, that was massively influential in my whole life, actually. But she was so supportive and sort of told me I could do anything and really helped me feel like I could become an animator one day. So I did that degree, and then while I was on the course, we had a fantastic speaker come and talk to us about a place called the National Film and Television School, where you could do a master's in animation directing. And this was the place that Nick Park went to, who directed the Wallace and Gromit films. So I thought, wow, if Nick Park had gone there, then that's absolutely the place that I need to get to. So I got my portfolio sorted, and I went along, and I had to go for a week-long interview. It was really hard, and they had 10 people in the interview process and only took 6 people altogether. So it was a bit high pressured. So you were kind of always, you had to do a task, you had to make a little mini film. You had to, yeah, it was really intense. But luckily I got through it, and they accepted me onto the program. And yes, I had the most amazing time. It was a 2-year course, and some of the tutors were my animation heroes as well. So I was tutored by an amazing director called Caroline Leaf and Paul Bush. So these are people's films that I'd grown up watching. So it was absolutely mind-blowing to then meet them. And yeah, so while I was on the course, I tried out lots of different styles of animation. I did sand animation, I did 2D, and then I got to do some stop motion work. And I loved doing the stop motion work. And we did a particular project which involved pixelation, which we had real people, and they became kind of the models themselves. So like you would animate a stop motion puppet, they would kind of position themselves, then move a bit, and you take a photo, move a bit, take a photo, move a bit, take a photo. So then it kind of created this amazing illusion of a person being animated. And I really loved working with actors, actually. And so in the second year, you got to make a final film. So I decided that I wanted to make a set, I wanted to work with actors, and I also wanted to work with stop motion puppets as well. So I pitched this idea, and on the course, they have lots of different other courses, such as sort of sound design, editors, producers, And in the final year, you get to collaborate and you make a film as if you would do in the actual industry. So throughout the first year, I kind of worked with a few people and I decided, yeah, I really like that person. I want that person on my team, and this person I work well with as well. So in the second year, I was like, right, these are my team, and we all work together to create a film. And then this goes on everybody's show reel. So my film was a film called Goodbye, Mr. Pink. And this slide, you can kind of see what it looks like. So I decided I wanted to do my film about pet death. So what happens to your pets when they die? And I went and interviewed lots of little children and asked them, you know, what do you think happens to your goldfish when it dies, or rabbits? And I got some really funny interviews and some answers to those questions about, you know, what heaven for a goldfish would look like, or, you know, the afterlife, and, you know, all these things. So using those interviews, I created a script with my script writer. And I decided I wanted it to be a rabbit that dies. So you can see here this poor rabbit in the hutch, this white rabbit here. It's actually a hare. It was massive. Yes, was going to be the central character in my film. So his name is Mr. Pink. And then I actually wanted to have some child actors as well do the kind of action first. So they come into the shed, which is their little play den, and then this is Dora. She discovers her rabbit has died, but her older brother is a bit more kind of practical, and he sort of says, you know, it's fine, they just die. But she's sort of quite upset, so he kind of tells her a story about what happened to the rabbit. And then as they're talking, the rabbit actually sort of comes to life through stop motion. So you don't see the child actors anymore, but you see the rabbit. And within it, so this is actually a puppet. So it's all kind of it's got an armature within it, so you can kind of move it, and the puppet goes around the shed to some different locations, and they become different settings. So there's one point he goes to Egypt and gets mummified, and so yes, on my website there's the whole film if you want to see it. But yes. And then at the end. So it's about a 5-minute film, I think 5 or 10 minutes. So this was an amazing experience, you know, to build this set and to work with these actors. So I just had the best time, really. And then when I graduated, the film went to some film festivals. So I got to go to Portugal and Germany and meet other filmmakers. And it was just a really exciting time for me. And then I decided to move to London. So I moved to London in 2009. And then, unfortunately, that was when the financial crash happened. So it was a recession. There was no money for funding. It was very, very difficult to sort of find work. So I'd gone from this really fantastic high of like being on top of the world and making films to kind of moving to London, not really sure what I was going to do. I didn't really want to work in sort of commercials. I kind of wanted to be an independent filmmaker, but as I said, all those opportunities had kind of disappeared for me. So I had a little bit of a worry about what I was going to do. So I set myself up as a freelancer. So I did work on a few projects. And then I found that all the projects that I was working on involved working with young people. So I really love doing animation sort of workshops. I love teaching animation. And I decided after working for a few people doing this that I wanted to do my own workshops. So I set up my own company with my name as the logo, and I called it Helen Animate Workshops. So this was kind of back in sort of 2012. So back then there weren't many people doing animation workshops. So it was quite a new and interesting thing. And it was really popular, actually. I was very lucky. So I set up a website and I contacted some of the big theatres and museums in London. I said, look, I'm doing this. I had these little laptop computers that I would take with me in a little suitcase, and I could sort of set myself up anywhere. So I was mobile, being able to do this. And yeah, it proved really, really popular. So I went, the great thing about London is there's so many places that you can do workshops. So I had a fantastic time going to different places. I did some workshops in schools as well, and one for Nickelodeon. So here I am meeting SpongeBob SquarePants in my SpongeBob SquarePants t-shirt. And yeah, you can see here, these are the little laptops that I had, and I had a webcam. So fairly sort of simple setup. But, you know, the response I got was just fantastic. So children absolutely loved it. You know, they could work in groups, they could come up with their own characters and their own stories and their own narratives. And, you know, at the end of the workshop, they'd have a little film that they could then, you know, show their parents or their friends. So it was just really fantastic. I had the best time, really. And then sort of on top of that, I was doing a few other freelancing bits and bobs, but this was kind of my passion. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, as I was doing this, I was contacted by a former tutor of mine, someone from the NFTS, and I'd been putting this on Facebook so everybody could see what I was doing. And she said, oh, Helen, I see you're doing these workshops, and I've been contacted by a publishing company who are interested in developing a book for children in the form of a kit. And I see what you're doing, and I think, you know, you'd be the perfect person to do this. So I said, okay, great. So I got in contact with the publishers, and they kind of explained the concept to me, and they asked me if I would write the animation guide for it and sort of direct the kind of visual look of the book as well. So that led me to create a kit called Animation Studio. So Animation Studio is a sort of all-in-one kit. It comes in a box here, so you can kind of see kind of what the box looks like. And then within this, the actual box opens and it becomes a little stop motion set. So it's kind of got a spooky laboratory sort of look, and there is sort of a little trapdoor that opens and a little door that opens as well. And then there's also a little book that comes with it. And within that, I'm a little character. I'm sort of like a little cutout person. And it kind of explains the sort of process of animation. So this is for sort of 7 to 12-year-olds it's sort of aimed at. So it's not too technical, but it kind of just gives a brief overview. And it kind of starts you off with some little, yeah, as I said, pop-out characters that you can use. There's also a little inserts that you can slot into this set and sort of change the background, so you can make it into a space scene or a desert scene, or you know, you have the opportunity to sort of make your own version of it as well. So it was sort of a good kind of platform for young people to sort of start playing around with animation, really. And yeah, so it was translated into lots of different languages. I had people from all over the world contacting me and sort of sending me their little films they'd made. And it was just wonderful. It was just brilliant. And, you know, this led me to do some author sort of events as well. So I got to meet other people, and yeah, it was great. It was really, really good fun. So this came out in 2013. And then off the back of that, that was when kind of YouTube tutorials were getting quite big then. So I decided that I was going to do my own YouTube channel as well. So I sort of set myself up, and I sort of did a couple of episodes of me, sort of my camera, and sort of talking about how to make animation. And yeah, that was really great. So that kind of, I did that for a few years. Yeah, so then this was 2015 now, and I was thinking, you know, do I want to grow my animation workshop business, you know, because it was great, but it was really tiring, you know, going around London, and I was thinking about the future and kind of what I wanted to do. So either I sort of started employing people and kind of expanded it, or I did something else. So it was at this point that I was contacted by another one of my former tutors, Susie, who said, oh, Helen, there's a job coming up at Norwich University of the Arts, and I think you'd be fantastic as a lecturer teaching. And initially I was a bit, I'm not sure if I'm quite qualified to sort of teach at that level, but you know, she was very supportive and very encouraging. So I said, okay, well, let's just apply and see what happens. You know, there's nothing to lose really. So I applied for the job. I went to the interview and I got the job, which I did not expect at all. So I moved from London to Norwich in 2016. And yeah, I became a lecturer on the course at Norwich. So it was a fairly small course at that point. There was about 25 students per year. It was a 3-year course. And I was sort of kind of in charge of the stop motion aspect of the course, so teaching puppet making skills and stop motion skills as well. And so here are some of the puppets that my student Daisy made this year, and you can see here this is sort of this was a few years ago when you could graduate with everybody, but yeah, I loved it again. I really enjoyed working with the students and on the course, and the course is ever changing, so now it's become combined with visual effects now. So the first year you get to do animation and visual effects, and then you can kind of choose your discipline in the second and third year. So we teach stop motion, CGI, 2D animation, motion graphics, and then there's also the visual effects strand as well. So it's fairly varied, and we get all sorts of interesting people coming on the course. So that's what my position is currently now. And then, yeah, so in 2017, I decided that I wanted to sort of do something else outside of my role as a lecturer. And while I was in London, I went to the launch of a new organisation called Animated Women UK. So this was set up by a woman called Lindsay Watson, who is actually an animation producer, and she was really frustrated about the lack of women working in the industry, especially sort of higher roles, you know, working as directors or kind of creative leads. And she just found it was just a very male-dominated industry. So she wanted to set up an organisation that supports women, allows sort of for events for them women to come together, to meet each other, and sort of, you know, make connections in the industry. So I went to this in 2013, I think, when it launched, and then they advertised for a role for the educational advisor. So I went for that role, and yeah, I got the role amazingly. So yeah, so Animated Women UK, it's an organisation, and it works on a membership basis. So you sign up and you have to pay a small fee. It's an annual subscription, and it sort of welcomes women from all backgrounds of the animation and the visual effects industry. And you're welcome to join any stage in your career. So if you're starting out in the industry, or if you've been there for a long time, it sort of welcomes everybody. And the board is that the people that run Animated Women UK, they're all volunteers, so we all give our time for free, and they're all people working sort of in high roles within the industry, sort of expertise. And yeah, and all the profits that we make from the membership go back into sort of organising events, you know, running of the website. So it's a not-for-profit scheme. Nobody makes any money from it, but we all do it for the love, really, of it. Oh, let me just admit somebody here. There we go. Yes, so you can see here, yeah, we're doing kind of meetups, and then obviously when the pandemic hit, we sort of continued these online as well. And yeah, the 5 key aims that we've sort of come up with to reflect the needs of women within the industry. So the first one is networking. So the importance of sort of bringing the members together through the physical and also online events to meet and, you know, just to make these contacts with the industry, because it's so important to sort of meet people and make those connections, and it just really helps your career progression. So that is one of the key points that we do. Mentoring, so I'll talk about mentoring a little bit further along in my presentation, but again, mentoring doesn't just have to be for early career stage people, it can be for seniors as well, just looking to kind of talk to somebody and kind of set some goals. So mentoring is something that we are really sort of keen to sort of promote as well. Showcasing, so this is sort of using our online platform and our sort of voice to present the work of our members. So this can be sort of either through the social media channels or on a website or at events as well. So kind of promoting women and kind of showcasing kind of what people are doing. And then, yes, so recruitment, so that is sort of sharing job opportunities, making contacts, and also recruiting other volunteers to help us run Animated Women UK. So we're trying to sort of grow our volunteers so we can just do more, really. And luckily we've had a really great intake, and it's just really fantastic. And then, yeah, education. So this is sort of where my role comes in. So when I joined Animated Women UK, there wasn't really any part of the organisation that sort of catered to students or recent graduates. So I sort of made it my sort of mission to create a separate strand of Animated Women UK to sort of cater for those people, really. So I set up Animated Women UK Education, or AWUK Ed, and so this was kind of the part of the website or online that students could come and kind of get some information from. So all the resources that I kind of made are targeted specifically at students as well. So Animated Women UK Ed, our aims for that is to, yeah, just support and promote and help students kind of going into the industry, because it can be quite scary when you graduate and you don't really know anybody, and sort of, where do I begin? How do I find a job? So this is sort of a resource. So this is actually on the Animated Women UK website. So here is the little blue book is the resources. So here I've put some inspirational books and podcasts and just links that I kind of come across that I think would be helpful for anybody going into the industry. Job roles as well. Job roles, they're sort of ever changing, but you know, when students sort of start studying animation, many don't realise all the different areas of the pipeline you can kind of work in. So it's not just become an animator, you could become a producer or a background artist, you know, all these things. So just a kind of a breakdown of all the different roles as well. Graduate stories. So this is when I speak to graduates. I interview graduates and then kind of give their advice back, and it's all on the blog. I'll sort of talk about this a bit later as well. But again, it's about showcasing recent graduates to kind of give advice and ideas to new people entering the industry as well. So yeah, these are all kind of different areas. So the community as well, events, and then also the blog. So yeah, so as I mentioned, the graduate stories here. So I put out a shout out onto Animated Women UK socials, asking if anybody would like to be interviewed, and to send me a link of their portfolio. And if I think they're a good fit for this, I would then invite them to have a showcase on the blog. So here we've got Lucy, Liana, and Natasha. And I try and get a range of people also going into different areas. So Liana is a visual effects producer, Lucy is a freelance director as well. And Natasha's kind of just trying to find her footing. So yeah, and then through doing this, these students can then say, look, I've been featured on the Animated Women UK stories, and they sort of put it on LinkedIn or on their socials, and can hopefully kind of find some opportunities through there as well. Yes, so with Animated Women UK Ed, I run the closed Facebook page, which anybody can join. And this is really great because it also invites academics to join as well. So I'm kind of creating a kind of network of people that teach animation, specifically women or sort of non-binary people. So this is really great because students can then kind of meet each other or kind of ask questions as well about the industry if they're not quite sure. We also do sort of portfolio reviews, so people can upload, put their show reel on Facebook if they're happy to, and get some really great advice as well about kind of how to improve, or maybe their website as well. So this has proved very popular, and yeah, I welcome anybody to join it if you'd like to as well. It's open to anybody studying animation and visual effects, but they have to be women or sort of non-binary. That's the kind of main thing. And then also I run the Instagram page as well, which I do showcase on students and through the stories as well. So please do join those if you'd like to. Yes, so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about mentoring now. So Animated Women UK launched their mentoring program last year. So it's all online, and it's powered by a company called Prospella, which make the whole process really simple and really easy. So mentoring is something that is really crucial, I think, and it can really help you kind of make your first steps into the industry. And when you sign up for the membership scheme, so we recruit mentors and mentees as well. So when you sign up, we kind of look at kind of your profile and think, okay, this person could really match up well with this mentor. So we match up mentees and mentors so they have suitability for each other to give the best advice they can as well. And sort of when mentors join up, they get a pack and kind of sort of an overview of kind of how the mentorship scheme will run, how to get the best out of the experience, and kind of what to expect, and a bit of structure. And then it's basically up to the mentee to then contact the mentor to arrange that first online meeting. And so we kind of just hand it over to them to sort out. So there's no kind of, you have to meet on this day and this time. It's kind of that kind of relationship that sort of, yeah, just sort of goes from there really. So yeah, and the great thing is about mentorships is it's not just the mentees that get something out of it, but also being a mentor can be a really great experience as well. So if you become a mentor, and you've kind of been in the industry for quite a while, you have all this fantastic knowledge and experience that you can then pass on to sort of the younger generation as well. So I've been a sort of mentor before, and it's really great just to reflect on kind of what you've done and kind of what you've learned, because a lot of your experience comes from doing things sort of practically and sort of going through this kind of really quite uncomfortable phases sometimes when you're not quite sure where your career is going or what you're doing. And I was very lucky to have such supportive lecturers in my career that really helped me. I would not be here today if they hadn't said, oh, Helen, there's this opportunity, or if I'd have asked them for their advice. So, and that could be a really great positive thing for you as well to kind of give back. And yeah, so, and also if you're not used to kind of being in a position where you give your advice or you kind of manage someone, it kind of gives you that experience to then kind of, have to think about, okay, so how can I kind of best impart my knowledge, and how is it going to help this person, and what questions should I ask this person to kind of get them thinking about their kind of goals and their aims as well. So it can be really great to kind of develop your own sort of leadership skills as a mentor as well. And then ultimately you make some really fantastic contacts as well, the next generation that's coming coming up. You know, it's really great to sort of see those new ideas and all the new technology that, you know, young people are kind of using to kind of showcase their work or make films or animations or creative work. So it kind of really keeps you in sort of up to date really with kind of what's going on as well, and you can make some really great friendships as well. So those are some of the really great benefits of being a mentor. And then if you're a mentee as well, yeah, it's just really great. You get access to really fantastic career and personal development advice. So, you know, working with a mentor, you can kind of put together a plan of kind of what your goals are and your aims are. And then sort of when you kind of meet up next time, you then sort of say, okay, I did this, this and this. And, you know, I managed to get a contact here and I sent an email, but I'm not quite sure if this is the right tone. So can you give me some advice about it? So it's just kind of having that kind of support to kind of make sure that you feel confident really going forwards kind of with whatever kind of your sort of goals are that you want to pursue. And then obviously you're connected to that person as well. So if there is a job opportunity that comes up within their place of work, or if they know somebody that's looking for an entry person, like a junior person, then they can pass on that job to you as well. So that's a really great thing to have as well. And yeah, it just really helps you get a clear sense of direction, because you might be thinking, you know, oh, I really don't know what I'm doing, or I don't feel confident enough in my portfolio. And it just gives you that kind of cheerleader that says, yes, you can do this, you just need to do these things and then you will get there. So yeah, it's proved very popular, obviously, but you know, there are lots of different mentorships about. I don't know what the situation is in Istanbul, if everything's going on, but my advice is, if there's somebody that you really admire and you really like their work, there's nothing to stop you from just sending them an email or, you know, a message saying, you know, I really love your work, I was wondering if you could just give me some portfolio advice, or, you know, there's, you know, on LinkedIn or even on social media at a certain point, and just making sure the tone's correct. But, you know, you've got nothing to lose. You know, the worst thing that can happen is they could ignore you really, or say, don't contact me, and then that's fine. But, you know, you might get lucky and somebody might say, okay, yeah, I've got 5 minutes spare, I'm going to answer this email and give this person a little bit of help, because we've all been there, you know, in the industry, and it's hard. It's really hard to get somewhere. So I would say if you can't find a mentorship opportunity available, just contact somebody that you really like the work of. That is my advice. Yeah, so some of the things we do with Animated Women UK is we run something called the Achieve programme. So this is a really great project that sort of happens over a certain amount of weeks. So it invites people, so it's 8 women who are starting their career, 8 people that have already sort of been in the industry, and then 8 senior women. And we do workshops about kind of career advice. Also, you know, if people are kind of stuck at a certain level and they want to kind of, you know, have the confidence to sort of climb up the ladder of their profession, then just kind of steps to kind of get there as well. So yeah, the Achieve workshop, yeah, is something else that Animated Women do. It had to be online this year, but it's really interactive, and it just lets women just meet each other and develop a much greater understanding of just how to manage their careers, really. Because even when you get into your career, you might not be sure where you want to go next. So it's just a continuous way of kind of, yeah, developing yourself, and also meeting like-minded professionals as well. So again, everybody gets something out of it, you know, whether you're starting or you've been in the industry for a while as well. And yeah, it's just something that, yeah, we found really, really positive that we do. Yeah, so now I'm going to talk a bit about my current and also my future projects as well. So during lockdown, it's been fairly tough to sort of do anything really, but you know, luckily the fantastic world that we live in with technology available to us has allowed, you know, us to kind of still continue working. So, you know, teaching, I'm sure everybody has been kind of doing some learning online, and you know, there's some really great positives. I mean, I prefer to sort of see my students and kind of work with them, especially doing stop motion, which is a massive challenge, but luckily, fingers crossed, things are getting better. So yes, but it means that we've had to do a lot of hybrid learning, so it's sort of online as well as face-to-face teaching, which I think is a positive thing. I think there are kind of benefits to both ways. I think a nice mix is the best way forward. So while we've been in lockdown, I've still been kind of flying the flag for women working in animation. So a few things I've been working on is with a project called Visible in Visuals. So this was set up by 2 animation professionals called Tanya and Hoden, and they we're just frustrated about the lack of representation, not just for women, but people of colour, also people with disabilities. I wanted to kind of discuss some of the big issues within the industry, just to kind of raise awareness and sort of to start a discussion as well. So I was on a sort of podcast, which was the women's panel. So talking about women and how, you know, women work in the industry and some of the challenges that we face as well. And, you know, how we can kind of best work towards sort of overcoming these things. So this is available, I think it's on SoundCloud. So if anybody's interested in listening to kind of the discussion that we spoke about here, you can do that. There's also some other really fantastic topics they discussed as well. So yeah, definitely recommend doing that. Yeah, so I think, you know, what these guys are doing are really great. I think they sort of looking at, there's been quite a few studies actually in the UK and surveys, and generally speaking, industries are just lacking representation, especially at the senior creative levels. And all of this kind of influences the next generation as well. And it's sort of the responsibility of the industry to, you know, to work towards kind of helping young people feel confident going in, you know, whatever your background, whatever your colour, and whatever your gender as well. So kind of making it more inclusive, really. So this was a really great initiative to sort of start pushing for that, really. And, you know, hopefully paving the way for the future generations to, you know, feel confident going into the animation world as well. So that is Limitless. And yeah, another project I worked on, which is run by a fantastic woman called Hannah Lau Walker. So this is called She Drew That. And they're not really an organisation, but they're kind of an initiative as well. But they before the pandemic, they were organising lots of talks for women to sort of come and present their work, sort of professionals. They also do portfolio reviews as well, and they also set up their own kind of internships, but in-house internships. So they work with a company called Strange Beast, specifically for people of colour as well, to kind of work and sort of get an internship. So they've got a lot of great stuff online. So I really recommend that you look at their Instagram as well, and they have some really great posts about just advice, really, portfolio advice. And I sort of got in contact because they were doing a topic called aging in animation. So it was about kind of the concerns people had, you know, not just older people in the industry, but also young people, about, you know, what it's like, you know, getting older in the animation industry. So it was interesting. The young people were concerned about how you know, they could get into the industry and kind of portfolios, but also how to kind of support themselves. Because if you're working as a freelancer, you know, your work is not particularly stable unless you have a kind of a long contract. So things like, you know, having a pension, how do you have children, how do you support yourself, how do you kind of work, you know, as well as, you know, all these things. It was just really interesting. Whereas the older people were talking about, you know, the physical aspects of animating. So, you know, if you're drawing, you know, if you get a wrist injury or a back injury, and how important it is to kind of look after your physical health as well, and also your mental health as well, because, you know, when you're doing something you love that's, you know, like animation, you can kind of get completely all absorbed by it. And this is why it's really important to kind of have a life outside of your work as well. So, you know, something that I do is kind of, I make things as well, you know, making sure that I spend time with my family. And we sort of found that, you know, the older you got, the more sort of you were dedicated to really protecting your time. So you would only work from 9 till 5, or from, you know, 8 till 4 or whatever. And how, you know, when you're a young person, you kind of just want to make a really great impression and just sort of work all the hours you can and do late nights and things like that, and how that's really not sustainable. Then you have to really look after yourself. So yeah, so we did some talks about this. I think they're still available. Actually, they won't be available online because it was a closed group, but you can join the She Drew That Facebook page, and that's when they kind of put out the invitation to kind of go to talks and things like that as well. And then we did a podcast with Motion Hatch as well. And yes, and then on the She Drew That Instagram, they welcomed animators or illustrators to actually draw an image that represented kind of how they felt about it. So this one is from Christina Nerland, and so you can see that she's juggling having a child on her back, but also kind of working, and, you know, how do you have the energy to keep doing that sort of thing. And the hashtag we used was aging in animation. So, you know, these are real kind of issues, and it was just great to have this discussion, really, to talk about what the realities were about kind of, yeah, getting older in the industry. Yeah, and then another project that I've got on the go is called Limitless. So me and some friends that work with Animated Women UK, we were sort of talking about all our other creative pursuits that we do outside of our day-to-day jobs. So my crafting, and then my other friend, she makes little sculptures. And then we were talking about, we're doing all this work, but no one really gets to see it, and we should really celebrate the creative work that we do outside of our other jobs. So we thought we'd come up with an exhibition idea. So we pitched it to be called Limitless. So Limitless is kind of, you reach for the stars, the sky's your limit. And we kind of put the feelers out to find, other women that were kind of doing other work on the side of their other work. So we sort of looked at social media, we looked at our social media to see what people were putting out there, and we kind of came up with a list, and we wanted sort of people that have just kind of started going into the industry, people that also been there for a long time. And yeah, we sort of emailed them and said, oh, look, we're setting this exhibition up, would you like to take part in it? And pretty much everybody said yes, because everybody was at home during lockdown, and people were taking up crafts like embroidery or watercolors, and yeah, we wanted to kind of celebrate that, really. So this is what we've been working on for the past year. Initially, we were going to launch it as a physical exhibition in London, but unfortunately with lockdown, we've had to sort of think about an alternative way to do it. So we've been working with an online platform to create a virtual exhibition of the work. So yes, we've had everybody put in their work now, and we've got this sort of really interesting 3D space. It's a bit like a sort of an old computer game where you can kind of walk around, but it allows you to import your pictures. You can have sculptures, or you can have kind of flat artwork, and it creates a sort of 3D virtual environment gallery space. And it's got lots of different templates. So we've chosen one that we like, and now we're currently sort of curating this online exhibition of everybody's work. And through the Animated Women UK newsletter, we're sort of doing kind of teaser profiles of the exhibitors, or putting out their website so you can kind of find out more information about them as well. And yeah, so we're hoping to launch this in September. So it's going to be mid-September. So I'll send out a link to ANIMIST if you'd like to sort of share it. So we'll have an online launch, as it were. And so it's going to be open for about a month, and then hopefully, if all goes well, next year we can do the physical exhibition. So in a way, it's quite a nice sort of run up to what we could potentially be doing, and it allows us to actually kind of have a go at kind of curating it before we actually get into the 3D space. So yeah, so Limitless is my next project that I'm working on. And I think, let's go back there. Yeah, I think that's actually the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour about kind of what I'm up to at the moment. But yeah, it's I've got a baby that's 2 and a bit years old now, so it's sort of been interesting kind of juggling creative work as well as my kind of professional work and my work with Animated Women UK, but it can be done. It's not impossible. It's not easy, but I can't not do work. Really, it's what I love. It's my passion, and I want to show my little girl that I want to be a good role model for her as well. And you can achieve your ambitions as well. So that's it, really. So thank you very much, and yes, I'd be very happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much, Helen, for the great presentation. And well, I have a couple of questions, and I'm sure Doğa also has some, or maybe our audience, we will take some questions from them as well. My first question would be, I see you as a successful person because I feel you love what you do, and you find meaning in what you do. I mean, that's my definition of success in a way. So in order to reach this level, what do you think your strengths were?
Okay, I think my strengths were that I was very dedicated to achieving my goals, and there were points, especially when I kind of graduated and I wasn't sure which place I was going to go to, that I had doubts about what I was doing. And there were points where I thought, oh, I might just move back home, I might, you know, get a stable job. But there was something within me that just said, look, you only get to live once, and you have to at least try your best to achieve what you want to do. And luckily I had, you know, very supportive family and friends, and who just kind of would always kind of butt me up when I was kind of feeling that I wasn't going to achieve what I wanted to achieve. But, you know, it's not been easy. It's sort of, my career's kind of been like this, really. But I just can't not do something that I love. I just think, you know, what's the point, really? You know, you know, there've been points where I've had to sort of compromise a bit. I've had challenges, and I just want to say, yeah, like I said, it's not been smooth sailing. But ultimately, I need to believe in what I'm doing as well. And I really enjoy working with young people and seeing the passion and sort of helping people. So that is where my joy comes from. And, you know, if I can do it in a creative way as well, that's just a huge bonus. I do believe, as I said, in goal setting. So I think actually sort of sitting down and kind of writing out what you want to achieve as well really helps, because otherwise you're kind of just thinking about it, and you really have to kind of make a plan, you know.
Oh, your sound
goal, and then you sort of work back thinking, okay, what are the steps that I need to do in order to get to there? Do I need to do some research into that company? Do I need to contact somebody? Do I need to develop my skills in a certain way as well? Do I need to build a portfolio? And then actually having this kind of nice plan in place really kind of allows you to think, okay, I've got a direction, I'm actually achieving something. And then, you know, and then strangely enough, the universe, I find, will bring you what you want, strangely enough. And then, you know, you start talking to people, you put things on social media, say, look, I'm doing, I've made this thing, da, 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 da. And, you know, anybody can see that and think, wow, you know, this, like I said, with my workshops, you know, I was putting this on Facebook, and if my tutor hadn't seen that, then she wouldn't have suggested me to do things. So it's about kind of having that confidence to kind of put your work out there and for it to be seen as well. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. I think Animated Women UK is a great example, a role model for other kind of organizations in some other countries, such as Turkey. Do you think Animated Women UK achieved, you know, in strengthening or empowering the careers of women in England? How do you see that? Or how do you sort of calculate, you know, the level of empowerment? Do you do studies or researches about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the ultimate goal is Animated Women UK is that they don't really want to exist. They don't want to have to exist, because once, you know, that we've achieved what we want to achieve, there'll be no need for this organisation. So I think, you know, until that happens, that, you know, we're going to still be sort of here. I do think things have definitely improved. I mean, over the last sort of 10, 20 years, you know, more women are kind of feeling more confident to go to those senior levels. And I think there's so much sort of news in the press as well, that a lot of companies are now really becoming more aware of the fact that they need to have more diversity. They need to have sort of people in the roles that kind of aren't just sort of white male, really. So I think things are getting better. They're not quite there yet, but I think I feel very positive about it. And I think it's always great to have just a support network, you know, whoever you are, really. So, you know, not just for women, but for any other kind of, you know, person that feels, you know, that they don't have a voice, or there's an issue that they want to address. You know, there's just a lot of power that you can get from kind of being in a group and just sort of talking and kind of doing things like putting out podcasts or having a discussion, and kind of, you know, I think social media now is so powerful that, you know, everybody has a voice, really. And the more people that have that voice and are kind of, you know, pushing those messages, then that's how we're going to make kind of the big companies listen, really.
Can I ask something more about the organization?
Yeah, go on.
How do you fund yourself, and how many people are actually working? Because on the website I see lots of consultants and volunteers.
Yes.
But how does it work?
Yes, so so as I mentioned, it's if you want to join the organisation, there is a fee. So to become part of the network, you have to pay, it's a relatively small fee really, but everybody that works for Animated Women UK is a volunteer, as I mentioned. So it's just women who are passionate about this. And, you know, on the board, I think there's about kind of 8 people that are sort of full-time. So we meet every month. We have a meeting online, sometimes in person when we could do, to kind of discuss actions going forward and kind of things on the radar. And this is really great because then we kind of make an action plan. And yes, we've sort of started to branch out now. So we've got kind of different regions. So some people in the North UK, just so it's not so London based and London centric. Which is great. So we kind of like set off little other kind of regions where people are kind of hosting their own Animated Women UK events as well. But everybody does it for the love of it. And we also do it to make contacts as well, and to kind of, you know, it's great for me not being in London as well. It was really hard for me to sort of leave the kind of the centre of of everything that was going on. So it keeps me kind of in contact with that. And again, it's just people that do it for the love of it, really. You know, want to make a difference, want to help people, women specifically, and yeah, but it's, yeah, we all do it for the passion. But then, you know, if something comes up in someone's life, you know, that they don't want to do it anymore, you know, that's fine. People can just leave, and then we just bring new people on. And we have young people who volunteer as well, so do the kind of social media work, and that's all great for their CVs and, you know, for their experience as well. And they get to make contacts and you know, helps with their career. So it's kind of a bit of a win-win, really. But yeah, it's volunteer based, and then the membership that goes back into the company, and we do kind of, yeah, events and things like that. So yeah, self-run.
Well, it's great to see the organization. What you have done is very inclusive. What you have mentioned about gender, race, and age.
Yes.
But age is also a very important issue, and that doesn't really come up, you know, very much.
This is why we got such a great response from it, because yeah, it's something you don't think about really, but it's sort of, everybody kind of thinks about it, but no one really talks about it. So yeah.
Well, thank you, and thank the Animated Women UK organization for bringing that up, putting a spot on that. I was wondering, what kind of criteria do you apply when you are selecting mentors, for instance, in your mentorship program?
Yes.
Do you have a certain criteria?
Well, only that they, you know, are working in a creative role, such as animation and visual effects, that they're able to sort of give some of their time, because it's really important they're able to commit to the scheme as well. As I said, it's pretty sort of free flowing in terms of when they meet. We don't say you have to meet every Friday at 4 o'clock. So it's kind of, they have to have that conversation with the mentee, but they just have to be willing to kind of be able to give advice. And we do give them guidelines for kind of what is to be expected. So they have a bit of a structure to work with. But if they have any issues or any concerns, then they can email the Animated Women UK mentorship team, or the person running it, and sort of ask for advice, really. But you know, it doesn't matter. Even if someone has only been working in the industry for a year, actually they have really great advice for somebody coming in, you know, new, because if you've been working for 10 years, you may be a little bit not as in touch with the processes as well. So in a way, anybody really could be a mentor who is sort of, yeah, is in the industry at all.
Okay. I just realized that most of my questions are actually about starting out in the industry, because as a student, that's what I think about most of the time.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to ask is, with Animated Women UK, you created an incredible community that revolves around women, and sort of that empowers women in the arts. As someone that is also a minority in this gigantic industry, it sometimes feels intimidated. And I wonder if you have ever felt intimidated or like scared to go into the industry because it is dominated by like white men. Like, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so I've always been pretty gung-ho. I wouldn't say I'm like an overly confident person, but I'm very passionate, and I'm able to sort of somehow overcome my nerves, because I'm a bit sort of, yeah, I always think, I'm only going to live once, I'm going to just go for it. And also thinking about, what is the worst that can happen, really. So for me, that's just me personally, but I know I've got a lot of friends who do feel intimidated, who aren't sort of sure about their portfolio, or a bit worried about kind of, is my portfolio good enough? And unfortunately, it's something that a lot of women struggle with, whereas some men, I'm not being I'm sort of generalizing here, not all men, but some men just kind of don't think about that, and they're just like, I'm just going to go for it. And it's really frustrating that more women don't just sort of have the confidence to put themselves forward. So that's sort of something that we sort of talk about a lot in Animated Women UK, and sort of, I think, kind of finding women that kind of, you are inspired by, or you think, I'd like to be that person one day, I would love to kind of be doing their role, is kind of the best way to sort of think, if she can do it, then I can do it. So making sure that, there are women in those roles, that then makes you think, okay, well, there's somebody that looks like me, doing that job. So, how did they get there? And, how can I sort of emulate that kind of journey as well? So that's why it's really important, to kind of reach out to people, to sort of be confident, making sure that you're kind of set up as well as you can be, having a really great portfolio, a really great website, and then maybe just sort of, reaching out to that person. LinkedIn is really good. Actually, it's becoming more and more of a kind of big player in terms of making those contacts and kind of showcasing your work. And also, your fellow kind of peers and your students as well, or maybe people that graduated from university, they're really great people to kind of keep in contact as well with, because then you can kind of encourage and support each other. So this is something I'd really recommend, which you can do on LinkedIn rather than Facebook, which is a bit more kind of, the social sort of place to kind of make contacts. But yeah, I would definitely say LinkedIn is really good. But I would suggest that you just sort of need to get your portfolio in a good place, and just kind of, reach out to people and just ask for advice, really. Talk to your tutors, say, how is this looking? How's my portfolio? And then just contacting the companies, really. If you could find somebody, if you could find people sort of online, maybe they have a website, or maybe they're featured in a magazine, online magazine, or, they have a sort of blog post about them, but kind of saying, look, I really admire you. That always really works really well. If somebody sort of emails me and says, oh, I really love your work, then you're immediately like, oh, how fantastic. Of course I'm going to write you back an email because you like what I do. So that would be kind of my best advice, really. And then just sort of just push through that kind of fear of being nervous. And it's something that kind of comes with time, confidence, the more and more you do. I still get nervous about doing things. I was a little bit nervous to do this presentation, but, I've done so many, I'm kind of used to it now. But, you have to kind of start with that first step, and then that kind of, helps you grow and grow and grow as a creative. But like I say, you've just got to go for it, really. You've got to really follow your passion.
Okay, thank you so much for the advice. And one other thing is also about finding your way into the industry. You've mentioned that you worked as a freelancer for a while, and that's again is very scary to think about, to
Yes.
set up your own work and like having to get commissions and like work. So how did that work out for you? And if you have any advice for anyone that wants to work as a freelancer?
Yeah, it is quite scary, especially for someone who doesn't have a sort of, a mathematical brain. I find numbers really difficult. So for me, having to manage my own sort of accounts and, payments and things like that. I think luckily though, this new generation, your generation, there's a lot more online advice about how to do this as well. So I think it's basically just sort of doing a bit of research, really, sort of looking for, how do other people do it, really. You have to be very organized. You have to really kind of think about, what jobs you're wanting to do and how you're going to manage your sort of invoices and how you're going to get paid. And this is something also that comes with time as well. So luckily through the university that I work with, we have a separate part, it's called the Ideas Factory, and they do a lot of business skills, and they kind of teach the students how to become a freelancer and kind of give them a lot of resources as well. So there are, especially in the UK, there are a lot of kind of freelance resources for students to kind of get clued up about that. But I think, the earlier you can start thinking about that, the better. And it can be quite daunting. Another thing to do is to speak to, again, somebody who's kind of in the industry as well, and kind of just ask their advice. really. You know, how do you manage your your payments? You know, there are some really great websites that kind of set up invoices for you, so you just type in your details and you can just email that off. And I remember I was able to sort of put my logo on it, so it looks really professional as well. But yes, it's sad. It's a sad part of, you know, the reality of the industry is, yes, you could be making some really creative work, but you've also got to get paid really to live. So it's always really important to kind of be thinking about that as well. And yeah, so again, you know, once you get one job under your belt, you go on, and then you sort of, that's how you learn basically. So research and ask for advice is my best answer to that question.
Thank you. And I have one last little question, and it's about education. And you've decided to become an educator, or maybe that's something that you didn't actually think about at first, but you went through that. So how did you actually settle for education? And maybe are you planning on going back to like filmmaking or more creative stuff in the future?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I absolutely had no thought about becoming a lecturer at all when I, you know, back when I was studying. I wanted to win an Oscar. I wanted to, you know, make films. I had all these like ridiculous, well, I say ridiculous, but they're not ridiculous. You know, why not? Why not think I could win an Oscar, you know? And I think it was just... yeah, it sort of happened in a very sort of organic way. I think maybe if there wasn't the recession and there was, you know, job opportunities for me to make more films, maybe I would have maybe gone down that direction. I just didn't want to kind of make commercial work. I didn't want to work on any projects that I wasn't particularly in love with. And, you know, that's not the shame for everybody. Some people really love making commercials and, you know, absolutely power to them. But for me, I wanted to kind of, you know, do my own thing, really. I like to be able to have control of what I want to do. And yeah, and again, it was really intimidating because it was a big industry and maybe I wasn't feeling quite confident enough to sort of, I did do some work, but it just wasn't for me, basically. So it kind of just happened when I was just always interested in working on social projects with young people, and then it sort of suddenly, you know, dawned on me that this was kind of my calling and what I wanted to do because I love it so much. So I think you always have to kind of go with, yeah, what really ignites that kind of passion within you, what makes you think, oh, makes you happy, makes you really sort of smile and really enjoy and get satisfaction out of. But, you know, there were some jobs that I did that I hated, but that kind of helped me in a way to think, okay, I've done that, don't want to do that, so let's try something else. So there can be something said for kind of, yeah, just trying everything, really, being open to lots of different things, really.
Well, I have some questions about education as well.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what kind of skills you look for in your students. How do you admit students? Because in Turkey, we have a special talent examination kind of thing it's called.
Yeah.
Right now it's about to change, and there has been a long discussion about, you know, how should we admit students into departments such as animation. I want to know what's your thought on that, and how do you do that in UK?
Yes, so pre-pandemic, we asked sort of students to write a statement about why they want to study animation, sort of who their influences are, kind of, yeah, just sort of, yeah, where their passion lies, really. And alongside that, they would have to prepare a portfolio of work, sort of showing their drawing skills. You know, if they've made any animation, that's also a massive bonus, just to kind of show us their level of understanding, really, of the industry is one really important thing. So, you know, we don't expect them to know everything about the industry, but just so they have an awareness of kind of what they're, you know, who's making films, or, you know, what inspires them, really. And it doesn't have to be animation, it can be kind of an artist or a filmmaker, but they have to kind of, yeah, talk about kind of why, yeah, that is kind of something that they really enjoy. Yeah, drawing skills is absolutely fundamental. So if they've done life drawing, for example, that's always really fantastic to see, that kind of ability to observe and sort of translate it into kind of drawing. You know, if they've got multiple sketchbooks, that is just absolutely fantastic. And, you know, if they're coming up with their own characters as well. I mean, we don't sort of dissuade fan arts, you know, when people kind of recreate characters that already exist, but if they're able to do that and then kind of take it to another place as well, kind of make their own original work as well, that's always fantastic to see. I think now, you know, if students have the ability to make their own film, like own little like tests, so, you know, stop motion apps, you know, anybody can do that, you know, with the phone really, and, you know, just show us that they kind of had a go at it, or, you know, using an app to do a little 2D animation as well. If they've looked at the animation principles, that's always really fantastic as well. And yeah, so that was kind of, and then we would meet them. So we would have a portfolio. They would come into a room where their portfolio would be, and we'd sit with them and we'd talk to them about their work, and they would kind of, yeah, explain kind of maybe a project they've done and kind of why they want to study animation. And so we kind of get a feel for who that person is and kind of what they're about, and that's kind of how we would select our students. But now everything is sort of online now, which is fine. I do miss meeting the person, because you know, that's, I just really know, then obviously if they get accepted to the course, then you're like, oh yeah, I remember you, and you know, you kind of put a name to the face to the portfolio. But it's a similar kind of process that we do. So they would upload their sort of written work about kind of why they want to get onto the course, and then, you know, they would show us their portfolio. So that's kind of the process that we sort of go through really, and then it's sort of up to us to decide, you know, is this person ready for the course, because that's really important. We don't want to take on anybody that is really going to struggle with the sort of academic structure and sort of deadlines, and you know, something that you can kind of sort of see just in the technicality, and if we don't think they're quite ready for the course, we have something called Year Zero, which is a course that is open to those that really want to study a subject. Maybe we don't think they're quite ready, but they can sort of spend some time on that Year Zero just to kind of try out different things and then get their portfolio in a stronger position. And then obviously if they think, yes, definitely want to do animation, then we will kind of, you know, review their portfolio and then put them onto the course in that sense. So that's pretty much how the structure works for taking on.
Well, thank you. You mentioned business skills as a very important and a course, you know, that should be given to the students probably.
Yeah.
What else do you think is a must for students when we are teaching animation?
Yes, so alongside the business skills, we sort of also really impart something called soft skills, although I don't really like calling them soft skills because they're actually quite hard, really important skills. So actually at Norwich University of the Arts, they've developed a game called Profile, which is this really cool card game that lists all these skills that students potentially wouldn't even think about that they have in their sort of tool belt of being kind of attractive to employers. So things like resilience, you know, are you able to take on, you know, criticism, and are you able to learn from that instead of sort of letting it kind of, you know, beat you down or knock your confidence? So are you able to sort of, you know, if somebody says, yeah, that's not working, you need to go back and change that, as a client might do, that ability to sort of take on that feedback and then work towards sort of improving your work. Also communication. So are you good? Can you reply quickly to an email or a message? You know, if you're working in the industry and somebody needs something or needs to get a question answered really quickly, you know, you really need to be on it and get back to that person really quickly, and also communicate in a kind of professional manner as well. Also, yeah, teamwork as well. So working within a team. Are you a good team player? Do you understand, again, it's all down to communication again, but can you work with other people? And in the industry, again, you're going to be working with people that you might not particularly like, but you're going to have to get along anyway, because it's all part of kind of getting the job done as well. So that's a really important skill to have. Also organizational skills. So this kind of goes back to the kind of, you know, business skills. So are you able to organize your time, you know, time management, you know, not be working, you know, through the night to get something done for a deadline or rushing at the end. It's another skill that you kind of get as you're doing kind of your course as well. So these are skills that you kind of learn as you go when you're studying, but you don't really think about it. It's sort of some knowledge that you just kind of impart, but it's not kind of your creative work, but it's all these fantastic abilities that you have to kind of help you get ready for entering the world of work. So this is yeah, something that we kind of teach, but then at the end we also get the students to really think about, you know, what are these skills that you have, and, you know, are there any areas that you need to improve upon, you know, sort of positivity, or, you know, do you need to get better at time management, and just have that awareness really is really important.
Maybe we have some questions from the audience. maybe they would like to ask. And before they do, I want to have, I want to ask one more question about your animation kit.
Oh, yes.
It's a, well, we would love to see that. And last year you were supposed to, you know, bring it. We were supposed to experience it, you know, here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope in the future sometime. I want to ask you. You said it has been translated to other languages.
Yes.
And not yet in Turkish, I suppose.
I don't know, actually. I'll have to check. I'll check with the publishers, and I've got a feeling it might have been, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen it, but
No.
I'd love to have such kind of a book being translated into Turkish. I'm wondering what kind of feedback you received, because it's supposed to be, it's a children's book, right? And what do you think are the what are the reactions of children, and what kind of feedback you have received?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been all positive, luckily. I've just been really pleased. I think the great thing about the kit is that it's not overly complicated. It's quite quick and easy. Sort of open it up, and there are all these kind of things you can sort of play with, and it's quite easy to sort of understand sort of the onset, really. So I think that's really helpful. I think it just gives you kind of a structure to work towards, because I think if you're kind of, you get an app and, you know, you look at some tutorials and you don't really know kind of where to start, or, you know, you're not sure about kind of making your own artwork yet, it's sort of a good sort of springboard to kind of help you feel a bit confident, because the backgrounds, I didn't illustrate the backgrounds, I've got to say that, unfortunately, but I had some really fantastic, I worked with some illustrators that made just such a beautiful look to it, and it looked like quite professional off the get-go. So you kind of set it up and you've got a really lovely background and you've got some really lovely characters, so you can make something really quickly as well. And I think, you know, for people like quite like quick things as well, so you can kind of just kind of have that structure, make your film, and then that allows you to kind of gain that confidence then, if you wanted to kind of keep going with it, to create your own backgrounds or your own characters as well. So I've had some people, you know, from South America. There was a teacher that made a whole display of the book and of me as a little character, and took a photo with his students holding the book and waving, and it was just so wonderful. And I really hope that, you know, somebody plays with it. And actually, when I was sort of a child, my parents actually bought me a little kit, an animation kit. It was like a folder, and sort of not too dissimilar from what I've done, and I loved that so much. And it was kind of probably one of the things that inspired me to sort of follow my passion into the industry. So if anything, I really hope that maybe one or two people, or even more, I think, you know, this is something I can do, and it's so brilliant, and I really would really love to do this as a career. So you never know, but yeah, just the reaction's been great, you know, on Twitter and on Instagram, and seeing people make little films, it's just wonderful.
Well, thank you for inspiring us, Helen.
That's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's fantastic.
Well, we would like to host you sometime in Istanbul.
I would love to come. I was all set. And then, but well done for, you know, bringing this together. I think so many other festivals have had to do this, and you know, it's sad because the energy that you get and meeting people, but hopefully, I really hope that, yeah, you can do this.
Your energy is arriving us all from Italy.
Good, yeah. Good, I'm glad.
Thank you so much again, and it has been a pleasure. But would you like to add something? You know, as we are almost closing up.
Yeah, just if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. So my website is helenanimate.com, and I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at helenanimate. So if anybody, you know, wants advice or any kind of thoughts about what I've spoken about, please, I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, the best of luck really for whatever you're doing. And yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
All right, take care and have a lovely festival.
Thank you. We opened it with you, with your good wife, and
Yes.
and love to UK and Italy.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody. Bye-bye.